Ah, there we are. I apologise for that. My Toblerone didn't want to work. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Licensing Committee, the last Licensing Committee of the year, on the 13th of December 2023. I'll now ask for the recording of the licensing to start, which it has, and we will... Before I start, I'd like to request from committee. I received a request from the Environmental Health and Licensing Manager to change the order of the agenda, and have agreed that the agenda item 9, the licensing update, will be discussed before agenda item 7, the taxi fees consultation review report. Is everybody content with that? Good. Item number 1, the minutes. Are members happy to agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of June 2023, which can be found on pages 3 to 7 of the agenda pack? Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Julie, could you call for the apologies?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have apologies from the Vice Chairman, Councillor Cadell, Councillor Annie Blackburn, Councillor David Blackburn and Councillor Samantha Taylor.
Thank you, Julie. Item number 3, urgent business, if any. I don't have any urgent business. Do you, Sarah? No? Item number 4, declarations of interest. Have members any declarations of interest to declare? The duties to register, disclose and not to participate for the entire consideration of the matter in respect of any matter in which a member has a disclosable pecuniary interest are set out in Chapter 7 of the Localism Act 2011. Members are also required to withdraw from the meeting room as stated in the standing orders of the Council. Do you have any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Non-members wishing to address the meeting. We have Helen Crane, who's the Cabinet Member. Welcome. Good morning, Helen. And we move on to item 6, which is the authorisations and delegations animal welfare licensing, presented by Sarah Wostenholm-Smythe, the Legal Services Manager. It was sent out as a separate supplementary agenda. I hope you've all received it. Could I ask for a proposer and a seconder to the recommendation, which can be found on page 2 of the supplementary pack? Taylor? A seconder? Thank you, Linda. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. The Animal Welfare (licensing of activities involving animals) England regulations 2018 came into force on the 2nd of October 2018. The existing delegations have been before this committee, but I considered due to new officers joining the council and job titles changing that it was better to have clarification and just to update the actual delegations. The regulations provide for licensing of persons in England in selling animals as pets, providing or arranging for the provision of boarding for cats or dogs, hiring out horses, breeding dogs, and keeping or training animals for exhibition. The delegations suggested are contained in paragraph 2.2, and they include the Assistant Director Health and Housing, Environmental Health and Licensing Manager, Food Safety and Licensing Team Leader, Senior Licensing Officer, Licensing Officers, Assistant Licensing Officers and the Animal Licensing Officer, to include grant, refusal, renew, vary or suspend with or without consent, revoke or to reinstate a licence, and to determine the period and conditions of the licence. In the case of refusal or revocation, I've suggested that this should only happen in consultation with the relevant executive member. The delegation will also cover for them to act as suitably qualified inspectors and to take all necessary action as inspectors, to be able to appoint listed veterinarians as appropriate, in respect of regulation to take enforcement action, and in respect of regulation the duty to assist in the taking of samples from animals, and in respect of regulation 19 to deal with the obstruction of inspectors. It also includes the seeking and executing of a warrant for entry and any other action required under the regulations. So the recommendation, please, is that the committee agrees to delegate authority to the officers listed in this report under section 2.2.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm very pleased to see this report coming through. I'd just like to emphasise the expected benefits from it. That animal welfare is a subject that members are often asked about, and it's always a matter of concern for the general public. It's important that members and the public have confidence that the licensing authority is acting lawfully and has the full range of powers available to officers to enable them to implement and enforce the legislation. And we here at Breckland Council are extremely fortunate in the fact that we have the only animal licensing officer in the whole of Norfolk and the top of Suffolk. And so I thoroughly commend this report. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I'm going to vote on it.
Oh. All in favour? Thank you. Any abstentions? Any refusals? That's fine, thank you. So this recommendation has been approved. We will now come to item 9, the licensing update, which is coming in front of item 7, the taxi fees consultation review. And I'll hand over to Craig Fowler.
Morning, sorry about that, I was not playing ball. Morning everyone. I thought it'd be useful, thank you for allowing us to just move that agenda item forward. I think it'd be useful to inform a bit of information for the taxi licensing fees later. So this report is mainly for information. It's really just to advise the licensing committee. There's a recommendation there, so it's recommended that the licensing committee consider the information provided within the report and take account of the performance of the licensing team and the current areas of future work. So just to give an overview, I won't read the report line by line, but there are 2 main performance indicators there. So they are new performance indicators and they're included at Appendix A to the report. So the first indicator is P1048, which measures the performance of the team, and that's the percentage of taxi licenses issued within target. So the targets there are 90%, so we would issue 90% of the licenses once the applications have been made, that they're issued to drivers or businesses within the time given. So the target is 90%, and in quarter 1, 100% were issued within target, and quarter 2, 97% were issued within the target period. Therefore, we've achieved that, and we're over and above the target of 90%. So that's 100% for quarter 1 and 90% for quarter 2. The second indicator is enforcement checks. So again, we've introduced a new target there to actually measure enforcement activity, enforcement checks. The target for each quarter is 20. So in quarter 1, there were 48 enforcement checks, so well above the target. And in quarter 2, there were 43 enforcement checks. So therefore, the target has been achieved and exceeded. You'll see Appendix 1 there. There's also a bit of background information. I can take you through that if you want, but they're just generally indicators of the amount of work. So you'll see there, for example, this is from the 1st of January to the date that the report was written. We had 347 temporary event notices. There's been 23 new premises licence. There's 22 animal licence renewals. There's 17 new animal licences. And 415 annual fees applications. So there's further information in Appendix A. You'll see further data there about vehicles, renewals, animal welfare, personal licences, suspensions, etc., etc. So that's mainly just for information. So in addition to those numbers, just of work that we've carried out. So again, we've been working with partner organisations to protect residents. Some of this work must remain confidential and not disclosed in the public domain due to crime prevention, detection, and enforcement purposes. But basically, we have been assisting with the sale of vapes and tobacco. It is not a licensable activity. It's not something that we directly license, and we're not the lead agency for that. But we have been working with the police trading standards in seizing large quantities of illegal vapes. And also that whilst vaping and tobacco is not a licensable activity, they may be undertaken in premises where there is a premises licence. So, a shop selling alcohol, for example, may also be selling that as well. So we've done quite a bit of activity. We've got ongoing inspections with those agencies in the past, and we've got future one planned, and there's some ongoing work. Can't go into a lot further detail, but just to give a bit of background of that sort of collaborative working. The team have also been involved in conducting a number of taxi inspections. And also we have the Safety Advisory Group. So Safety Advisory Group look at events. So we will deal with some of the larger events. Again, that includes, we chair that, the Safety Advisory Group, but that will include emergency services, police, fire, etc., to ensure that those events are safe and visitors are kept safe. Again, we carried out a number of monitoring where we've had we look at event safety plans at the meeting, but we have had officers out in all of those major events during the summer where they've carried out they've been on site, they've carried out inspections for festivals, firework displays, etc. So ongoing work. We've obviously got a report coming on about the review of fees and charges. So we're undertaking various pieces of work to undertake a review of our fees and charges to ensure they're based on full cost recovery. And what we mean by that, I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, but when we say full cost recovery, so we're not undercharging and we're not overcharging. So we've been doing the private hire and taxi fees, which there's a further report later. And we're moving on to other areas of licensing as a rolling programme, and it's hoped that they will all be completed within the next 3 months. Perhaps the only exception to that might be the Gambling Act, but hopefully we will get there. So we're just working through all of those fees. Department for Transport has also released a new document which we received on the 17th of November. It's a good practice guidance for licensing authorities when they're doing taxi and private hire vehicle licensing. And the aim of that guidance is to enable the provision of safe, accessible, available and affordable services. So the guidance is currently being considered. We're working through that guidance, and it's likely that reports will be drafted to the licensing committee at the next committee meeting in 2024. There'll be a little bit of work that we'll need to do around that sort of work. We'll also refer that later in the committee of the licensing authority, not this licensing committee, but we've also been doing some work for Safer Streets funding with the Office of Police Crime Commissioner, and that will enable the employment of 2 part-time street wardens up until April 25 for Thetford and Thetford Town Centre. They will carry out a number of sort of low-level interventions to enable people to feel safer, and they will also be empowered to enforce the Public Spaces Protection Order if they need to. So we can probably come on a little bit that later on if there's any questions on that. And we've also done a paper to the Health and Wellbeing Board about a responsible alcohol retailing scheme to basically that's in the progress of being shaped at the moment, but that's also another work that's being done at the moment. So really that was just an update to hopefully to ensure members are made aware of the performance of the team, which is showing to be good or excellent. And just wanted to really just make sure that you're briefed and informed about some of the work that's ongoing at the moment and in the future. So again, that is just for information. If there's any questions on that, then please ask.
Thank you, Craig. Could I ask for a proposer and a seconder to the recommendation which can be found on page 133 of the agenda pack? It's recommended that the Licensing Committee consider the information provided within this report, taking account of performance and current future areas of work. Could I ask for a proposer, please? A seconder, thank you. Oh, sorry, I hadn't got to that bit yet, Kendra. Yes, any questions?
Okay, fine, thanks. Yeah, I just wondered if there were Kendra could share. Oh, sorry, yeah.
They're all playing up.
Let's try. There we go.
there.
Green. For all the different colours. Apologies. Yeah. So on email, like auto responses in response time to email and/or calls, I know that was raised in the bit for response from taxi drivers, and I've heard it from elsewhere. So I know you can only potentially comment for one team. But I just wondered, is there any kind of, I don't know, standardised wording for auto responses or response time, or just kind of, I think there was some frustrations with people not being able to speak to people. So just any comments on that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we do have auto responses to emails. We've also, there are a number of online forms and self-helps. I think over the last 12, 15 months, we have put scripts. We've got online forms there that people can go. So, you know, for example, if they're filling a form in, they can do it online, and it's hopefully taking them through. And it's also including some notes about what they need to include. So I think there is that. I'm not aware of any single complaint in the last 12 months. I'm not aware of any formal complaint about a lack of response time. The only thing I am aware, we have a compliments and a complaints procedure. I think we've had 3 or 4 compliments about the excellent service, but I'm not aware of a single. Sorry, I'm not of a single formal complaint for the licensing team. Not that there are some for other areas of environmental health, but in the licensing team, I'm not aware of a single complaint about that. I think we've looked at that. And I have to also say, you know, we've got chatbot, we've got a fully, you know, a customer service centre there. We've got people. I think there's a comment about people working from home. They're not working from home. They're working agile, and usually we will have some presence in the office most days. But you know, they might be working at home. They might be out in the field. And I think Josie may want to come in as well. But I think we also need to look at, why do they need to talk to an officer as well? I'm not saying, you know, and if we've got, you know, I don't know, we've got queues that just because somebody rings up, that doesn't mean that their application bypasses somebody that's been in for 2 or 3 days. And similarly, you know, they might want to talk to the licensing officer who's out on site, deal with some illegal vapes, or they might be carrying out a taxi rank inspection. So, you know, I need to talk to that particular officer. Well, yeah, I'm not trying to be rude, but they're not sat there waiting for calls to come in. So I think it's, you know, yes, you might not be able to phone in and speak to somebody within an hour or that afternoon or that day, but there is a message in, and I'm pretty confident that they will get a call back. But, you know, what I'm saying is they might be doing other things and they might be high priorities. So we've got a raft of, if you see what I'm saying, we've got customer services, we've got responses, we've got online forms, we've got chatbot, we've got some guidance notes there. So hopefully that just gives an assurance really that, you know, and I think we've said previously at the licensing committee, and I'd say again, that, you know, if any elected member, if any taxi driver has got issues, then if they want to contact us with a specific example, we can look into it. I think, sorry, I'm not trying to, I think the general, when we do that, it's a general response, but actually give me some actual evidence and an example, and we'll quite happily look into it.
I think, Kendra, Josie would confirm it for me, that if a applicant wishes to email and they mark their email as urgent, it is prioritised, Josie? Is yours playing up as well?
Here we go. So just because somebody marks it urgent doesn't mean... Oh, we've got feedback from someone.
Have you switched off, Kendra? Okay.
Do you want me to turn this off and just speak loudly? I wonder if it's because I'm sat next to Julie, too near the laptop. We'll give this a try. It seems to be a bit better. So just to go back to that, Madam Chairman, so just because somebody marks something as urgent, it is checked, but obviously we do our work in priority order. There are a number of items, applications that we deal with that are actually have time restrictions on them. So things like a varied DPS, that type of thing. A lot of the Licensing Act stuff is actually time restricted, like temporary event notices, where we have to actually deal with it in a certain time frame. So the team is more than well versed. They've all been working in the licensing team for at least 2 years, if not longer. They all understand what the priority order is, and we'll deal with it in that way. So look through the list of emails that comes in and then deal with it appropriately. I would just like to point out, because you know it's a little difficult sometimes sitting here and reading obviously comments that come in, but we do go out of our way to ensure that there is a good service. So much so that in September, at the beginning of the school year, we actually licensed 15 new vehicles in 1 week to ensure that the trade could actually get out and do the school runs. So it just gives you an example of, we made sure the resource was there that particular week, and that was their focus, to get those vehicles licensed. So just an example of what we do to prioritise to get those things done for the trade.
Thank you, Josie. Richard?
Yeah, first of all, sorry, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, I'll explain more later. Just one question. Earlier on in your report, you said there were 2 part-time people we were taking on. Where is the funding coming from that, bearing in mind the economic situation all around the country and councils, whichever way?
Yeah, no problem at all. That is being externally funded, so it is via grant funding, so it's not at a cost to Breckland Council. It's grant funded. We were successful. It's the Safe Streets Round 5 funding. I believe that is the Home Office that's done that. So yeah, it was a county-wide bid with the Police and Crime Commissioner. So yeah, that is being externally funded for up until the end of April 2025.
Thank you, Craig. Richard? Will?
Thank you, Chair. Just on that, Craig, it's obviously it's only for Thetford at the moment, but I was just wondering if there's potentially scope in the future for it to be rolled out to the other market towns. I know it's the public spaces protection orders mentioned in Thetford, it's targeted for that, but is there any potential for the others to be looked at in the future? Thank you.
Yes, we've got public spaces protection orders in other towns as well. There was only obviously limited funding, so we targeted it at Thetford. It is, I think our intention, it is a pilot, so we will need to do some evaluation, obviously back to the Police and Crime Commissioner to evaluate the effectiveness of that. But I think, yeah, it is effectively our pilot, and that may inform that we could extend it for longer at Thetford, and possibly whether we could, extend that out to other towns as well. So yeah, it's there. It's almost a pilot. I think it's also built on the back of when we did have our COVID support officers. So when we had COVID support officers, we had almost 2 people out on the ground in nearly every town all of the time. They were generally well received. I think the public businesses went to them, they've got a Breckland, can you help me with that? What's that? So I think we've sort of learned a little bit, and obviously that funding ended, so we had to end that. But I think they were a useful resource in the community. People got used to them being there. They gave advice even to visitors about, where's the public toilets? Where can I park? Can I do this? So I think, so they're a wider, a lot of low-level interventions. And I think, yes, in answer to your question, that is something that we will be looking at.
Thank you, Craig. The other thing, Kendra, is that although it can be unusual, is that I think if your question was related to one of the letters in the consultation, drivers can always contact their local councillor and ask them for any assistance. But in my experience, often we all have a habit of leaving things to the last minute, and leaving things to the last minute can be very challenging, because even if, as councillors, we try to get hold of officers, they might be in meetings, they might be out in the field, or they might be unavailable. So it's be prepared and ask to get in touch early. Do we have any more questions? No? Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Well, the recommendation is that the Licensing Committee consider the information provided within this report, taking account of performance and current future areas of work. All in favour? Any abstentions? No? Thank you. The recommendation's been approved. We'll move on to item number 7 now, which is the taxi fees consultation review. And Josie Hoven, the Senior Licensing Officer, will present the report, which can be found on pages 8 to 20 of the agenda pack. Thank you, Josie.
Hi, Chair. As Josie's having issues with the microphone, I'll take that, if that's okay.
That's fine, Craig.
Present that report, so yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is a report to review taxi licence fees. So the recommendation is, it's recommended that the Licensing Committee consider the responses received on the proposed increases in taxi licensing fees and charges, and make a recommendation to Cabinet and full Council on the proposed increases. So notice of the proposed variation has been advertised in accordance with Section 70 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act. A newspaper was published on the 1st of November in the Eastern Daily Press, and the same public notice was displayed at the council offices from the 1st of November to the 30th of November. Excuse me. So the trade was also contacted via email on the 31st of October of this year. And to put this in context, 219 lots of correspondence was sent out. So, and there were 7 responses. So this is a relatively small amount of the trade, and it equates to 3.19%. So just to put a bit of context on that. The proposed fees are shown in Appendix B to the report, and the 7 consultation responses are shown at Appendix C. Officers would also like to point out that the fees would not take effect, so what the decision is, it would not take effect until the 2nd of April 2024. The notice does actually say the 1st of April, but there is a legal quirk, or there is a legal bit, that if there is a if there are responses to the consultation, then a new date would need to be set. So I think the legal advice is that whilst the notice says the 1st, as there's been an objection, we would actually specify it would be the 2nd. So there was no fee rise last year. So the last fee rise was on the 1st of April 2022. So the period between the last fee rise and the proposed one, if approved, will be 2 years. So there has been no fee rise last year. We did consult on that, but we actually froze that, and we didn't impose any rise last year. So the costs are based on full cost recovery. We've undertaken a full review of the fees using zero-based budgeting, and it's also based on a universally accepted model and good practice requirements. So we've taken the model We currently appreciate the current level of rising costs to the trade, but unfortunately the council are not immune to those costs. Those costs are there, and therefore officers are recommending that the fees are increased as per the recommendations. As we've said before, fees were frozen last year, but they cannot be sustained any longer. If we do not meet our costs, then these will have to be met by the general taxpayer. They will effectively be subsidising those who choose to operate a business and require a licence. And it's respectfully suggested that the cost should be borne by the trade as part of normal business costs and those that use the service. So I think that's all I've got to say on the report. You may have some questions, and I'll let you ask if you have any questions.
Keith.
Oh, first time. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I did read all the responses, and I did pick up in there that some people are saying they could register with another authority because their charges are a lot cheaper. I mean, how do our charges compare with other districts round and about?
Craig, do you mind if I just interject quickly? I know that you've got the facts. Keith, when I had a look into this some weeks ago, and things might have changed, as I said, it was about 3 weeks ago, but I did notice that Kings Lynn and West Norfolk, North Norfolk and Great Yarmouth hadn't done a fee revision as yet. So that comment on that we are the most expensive, I think Norwich City Council is the most expensive, I don't think at the present time is entirely justified. But I will let Craig carry on.
Yes, so yeah, I don't think that is factually correct because we are not the most expensive, as the Chair have said. I think Norwich City Council are by a considerable amount. Also, the other fees, that we have got a comparison table there, but we understand that a number of those authorities are going through this process at the minute, so they've not set their new fees yet, and they will, well, if they're approved, they will increase. So they're in that process of doing what we're doing. But I think, and Josie will correct me if I'm wrong, I think by the time that process has happened, we will be, we probably won't be the cheapest, we won't be the most expensive, and we will probably be somewhere in the middle. And I think, I don't know if those other licensing authorities have actually advertised that yet, but I think we will be within £1 or £2 of, the vast majority of when they've done that. So I think we're, if I can, obviously I can't say what they're going to approve them because they're going through the process, but all I would say is we will probably be somewhere around the middle of the average sort of cost. I don't know if Josie wants to add anything to that.
I think the only thing to add to that is it's really a decision for you as councillors to decide whether it should be full cost recovery, which is what these figures are, so that the taxpayer is not paying that money. What other authorities do is entirely up to them. It may well be that the resource is not there within those licensing teams to have actually calculated those fees. It is a lengthy piece of work. It's not a 2-minute job. I can vouch for that. But it is a lot of work. We have done a thorough job this time, and the idea is that year on year, we will be able to review that much faster and get it forward in a much more timely manner in order to go through on the budget. But as it stands, these are the fees based on cost recovery for this council to produce those licences, to enforce, etc., etc.
Helen.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mine is obviously not a question because I'm not part of this committee, but as executive member, I want to thank the team for the hard work that they have done. This is a very, very big piece of work. It is our duty as a council to recover these costs, fully recover these costs on behalf of the taxpayer. And as Craig has said in his statement, that it's not for the taxpayer to subsidise. It has been a big piece of work. I've seen it. I've seen the figures, and I fully support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen. And committee, we do have Paul Walpole here from the Accounts Department, who's able to verify any of the accounting figures which you find challenging. Do we have any questions for Paul? No? Over to you again, Craig.
Yeah, just to also add to Councillor Gilbert's question as well, again, as in what other people are charging, I'm not making any suggestion, but I don't know what their performance is either. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, I'm probably saying you get what you pay for, but all I can say is that Breckland, we've just, in that performance report, as in Q1 and Q2, we turned around, so the taxi trader got 100% and 97% of Q1 and Q2. So what I'm also saying, I'm not suggesting, but I suppose, yeah, some of those might, I don't know if their turnaround targets are 197%, but obviously they can't be more than 100%. But so what I'm trying to say is you do get what you pay for. So if they might be charging less, yeah, you might be getting lesser service.
I'd like to thank you, but that's the sort of answer I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Do we have any more questions? No? Well, I'll get Sarah Worstenham-Smythe to read out the recommendation, please.
So the actual recommendation is that, having considered the responses received to the proposed increase in taxi licensing fees, the committee recommends to Cabinet and Council that they be increased in accordance with the figures advertised and that are contained within the report from the 2nd of April 2024. And Craig's already mentioned the anomaly between the dates, so we had to advertise one date. If there are objections, we then have to set the fee from another date, which has to be within 2 months, so hence the 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any further questions? Oh, can we take a vote on it then for the recommendation? Do we approve? Sorry. A proposer? Linda? And a seconder? Taylor. Thank you. So could we take a vote on it? All in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. That's lovely. Thank you very much, Craig. And we move on to item number 8. Josie, are you taking this? It's the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Vehicle Inspection Standards. Page 21 to 132.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning. So the purpose of this report is to review and approve the proposed updated vehicle testing standards for Breckland Hackney carriages and private hire vehicles, which is ultimately the mechanical test that the garages perform to ensure that our vehicles are safe. So just a piece of background, the licensing legislation allows for the council to set criteria in respect of vehicle specification. So under the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act, it allows conditions to be attached to Hackney carriage licences and for the council to prescribe Hackney carriages to be of such design and appearance as may be required. And for private hire vehicles, it's section 48 of the same provisions, and it requires the licensing authority to be satisfied that a vehicle presented for licensing as a private hire vehicle is suitable in type, size and design, so as not to lead a person to believe that the vehicle is a Hackney carriage. It's in a suitable mechanical condition, safe and comfortable, and be able to attach conditions to the licences. Licensing authorities can set specification for vehicle design which may be over and above or not assessed by a standard MOT. So the authority will need a mechanism of vehicle inspection to ensure the vehicle is suitable to be licensed and is mechanically safe. Section 50 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act requires the proprietor of any Hackney carriage or private hire licensed by a district council to present the vehicle for inspection and testing by or on behalf of the council on no more than 3 separate occasions during any 12-month period. For clarity, that's up to 3. We don't require 3. So it's just there if we have an issue with the vehicle, we can then call it in up to 3 times, just for clarity. The test under section 50 is separate to the MOT test. So it is to test that the vehicle is suitable for licensing as opposed to your normal standard MOT test. So Breckland Council requires that all vehicles to be licensed either as a hackney carriage or private hire vehicle are mechanically tested as part of the licensing process, in addition to having an MOT. To that end, Breckland Council is responsible for authorising garages in its district council area to conduct those tests. In order to conduct the tests, a manual of vehicle inspection standard exists for the authorised garages to use to carry out those inspections. The current standards were last reviewed in 2006 and implemented in 2007, and they were based on the then current MOT standards and the then taxi policy. A copy of those are attached as Appendix A, and you can see they're quite lengthy. I hope none of you printed them out. Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Vehicles National Inspection Standards were produced by the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Inspection Technical Officer Group, Public Authority Transport Network, and supported by VOSA in 2012. And that is the current guide to best practice nationally. It's proposed that our Manual of Inspection Standards be revised to reflect those 2012 National Best Practice Guidance, and a copy of the proposed revised inspection standards is attached as Appendix B. It is proposed that if this document is approved, it will be added to the Breckland Taxi Policy as Appendix L. It would therefore become part of the Breckland Taxi Policy and publicly available for all parties to see what is required in the testing standards for those licensed vehicles. The proposed manual of inspection standards is to be used in conjunction with the vehicle specification contained in the Breckland Taxi Policy at Section 7, and a copy of that is also attached as Appendix C. If approved, it's expected that the manual be utilised as soon as possible by the garages currently authorised by Breckland Council for conducting the mechanical tests. For clarity, we have 3 of those currently. We'd like to extend it. So it will also enable us to move forward with the advertisement for expressions of interest from other garages within the district who wish to become authorised by us to conduct those mechanical tests. And in an ideal world, we would seek to have 5, and where possible, 1 in or near to each market town, as we have 5 in the area. The Licensing Committee are asked to consider the revised Manual of Inspection Standards for approval and inclusion as Appendix L to the current Breckland Taxi Policy, and you may wish to consider if the proposed Manual of Inspection Standard needs to go out for public consultation. So the committee may, options available: 1, approve the revised Manual of Inspection Standards to be included as Appendix L of the Breckland Taxi Policy without consultation. Option 2 is to recommend consultation on the revised Manual of Inspection Standards and set out what that consultation will be. And recommendation 3 is not recommend the revised Manual of Inspection Standards and remain with the current one. The reason for the recommendation is that there must be a Manual of Inspection Standards for the mechanical tests for those vehicles. As the current one was implemented in 2006-2007, it is important to review national standards and ensure that the standard of mechanical testing in the Breckland Council area meets those national standards to ensure the safety of licensed vehicles for our passengers. The expected benefits are compliance with the new standards when vehicles are tested to ensure safety of licensed vehicles for passengers. So in conclusion, the recommendation is that it is recommended that the Licensing Committee review and approve the proposed updated vehicle testing standards for Breckland hackney carriages and private hire vehicles. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Josie. I think we all enjoyed going through the Manual of Inspection Standards. It was a wonderful reading, but very, very thorough indeed. So, could I ask whether we have a proposer and a seconder for the recommendation? A proposer, William, and a seconder, Keith. Thank you. Any questions, committee? Keith.
Not so much a question, but a comment. You would think that if you bought a brand new car, it would be up to spec. I know a taxi driver who bought a rather upmarket car, took it to be assessed, and it failed. So just because a car is new doesn't mean to say it's up to spec. So this is very important that all these vehicles are checked.
That sounds quite astonishing, Keith. And I hope that anything that needed repairing on the vehicle was paid for by the sales room.
A few years ago now, but it did happen.
Do you have any comment on that, Josie?
No, it does happen occasionally. It does. As anybody knows, you buy a new vehicle, it's no guarantee, but obviously it comes with a warranty usually. So we've made some changes to the policy in recent years to allow a lot more new vehicles to go on with the tinted windows, etc., etc. So I think we're doing the best that we can, but this is actually really important because it's about the mechanical safety for our passengers, particularly as we have a lot of vulnerable people using them. May I just ask whether we are proposing option 1, 2 or 3 on page 22? Is that okay?
Sarah was just coming on to that, Josie.
Thank
Linda.
Yes, I wanted, if I may, Chairman, to ask a question about...
Could you switch your microphone on? If you can get it to work, Linda. Nothing seems to be working this morning. My fault. We should have tested them all at the beginning.
I wanted to ask, through you, whether the team feel that there is a need for consultation in this context. It seems to me that to upgrade it to the best standards currently available seems good. I have every confidence in our team that they have done that, but I'm not sure how much confidence I have that the average, I assume, taxi driver or operator will appreciate the work that's gone into it or realise that it's not just something we've thrown at them and they can throw back at us, but something that's very important and carefully worked at and ideally should be left alone. This is my feeling. It should be left alone because any attempt they make to change it will probably not improve it. So if it's necessary to consult or you think it will be important and useful, fine. But otherwise, I'd say go for item 1, approve it without consultation, because I think the consultation will really just take up a lot of time and energy for everybody without achieving improvement.
Thank you, Linda. And I'm not qualified to answer it, Josie is. But as a layman, I wouldn't have thought I was qualified in any way whatsoever to know what the standards should be, what they are, or how they can be improved. But I'll hand over to Josie.
So the option was put in because I sought some advice, and because it is going into the taxi policy, it was felt that we needed to ask the committee whether you wanted to go out to consultation or not. I completely concur with what you've said. I think we probably need to ask the legal advisor if she is happy with us to proceed with option 1.
Yes, thanks, Josie. I was just coming on to Sarah. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, as Josie said, we included the word consultation in the report on the basis that if you're dealing with a new taxi policy, it would be consulted on in the round. And effectively what you're doing is you're amending the taxi policy because you're adding the additional appendix dealing with the inspection details. I'm comfortable that it does not go to consultation because the actual policy itself has been consulted on and the standards are the standards at the end of the day. We're only adopting what is the recommendation from those that are the experts, and I don't consider that a full consultation is necessary.
Thank you, Sarah. So the recommendation is... Oh, Keith again.
Just something that just occurred to me. We're looking to increase the number of garages that can undertake this work. Who tests the testers? So who decides that another garage is competent to undertake the work?
Thank you for that. There's going to be a separate piece of work that will go out. So basically they have to be MOT approved. Don't quote me on this because I don't know all of the MOT stuff, but there's a testing standard, I think it's number 4 under VOSA MOT, which is the vehicles that we use, that we licence. So there will have to be an MOT testing station in order for us to allow them to be authorised by us. But obviously they will also have to meet the requirements of the policy in hopefully the new section and the existing section on vehicle specification. We will do some work with them. The intention is to go out with an advertisement to gather expressions of interest, I think is how we term it, from those garages. And as I say, the proposal is that we would like to have one in or near each of the 5 market towns. Now, as you know, that may not happen because garages are not necessarily in the market towns. But the idea is that we will then work with those garages to make sure that they can meet both sections of that policy, but they will have to be MOT testing stations in order to be an authorised garage.
Are you happy with that, Keith? If I don't have any more questions, I'm going to hand over to Sarah Wostenholm-Smythe to read the recommendation, please.
So just to confirm, the recommendation is that the committee approves the revised Manual of Inspection Standards to be included as Appendix L of the Breckland taxi policy without consultation.
Thank you, Sarah. All in favour? Unanimous?
Let's do a first and a second. Proposer and second.
I thought I had done that earlier.
Yeah, but this is slightly tweaked.
I'm sorry, because Sarah has slightly altered the recommendation, I have to ask for a proposer and a seconder again. William proposing and Taylor seconding. Thank you. Well, that recommendation has been approved. Thank you very much, everybody. The next meeting, to note the arrangements for the next meeting, which will be our first one in 2024, on Wednesday the 20th of March at 10 a.m. here in the Anglia Room. Thank you. This meeting is now closed, and we will continue in a few moments with the Committee of the Licensing Authority. Thank you very much, everybody. Julie. Thank you, Paul. Apologies, everybody. We're just waiting for the recording to stop. All right. We'll have a 5-minute comfort break, everybody.
housing plans. I managed to get it changed. I've got my own. Oh no, no, I gather I'm not alone. I think they're happy with you. Yeah, definitely. I think the initial number I gave it was Terry Bedford or something. Who got there eventually. Right.
Hello. Yeah.
Oh, what has he done?
Oh, that's why I said that's on there.
Oh.
They went to hospital and they drew some fluid off the
Oh.
needle.
Is it sore?
Talk about her.
Yeah.
Because I woke up Sunday morning, the pressure was Saturday night, I couldn't straighten it.
Oh, crikey.
So, yeah. But I know
No worries. If you're not in, I'll just mark it down as apologies, all right?
Oh, yes, there is that to it.
You're falling apart. Oh, shit.
I know, poor old Richard.
Yeah.
Need to get yourself...
Tennis elbow.
Oh, that looks painful.
Richard, you shouldn't have come in.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have apologies from Councillor Cadell, Councillor Annie Blackburn, Councillor David Blackburn, Councillor Ray O'Callaghan, late apologies, and Councillor Samantha Taylor.
Josie Hogan, the Senior Licensing Officer, to provide a verbal update. Thank you, Josie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So really, just to summarise, Craig has actually already covered pretty much most things in item 9 of the Licensing Committee agenda, and the relevant information is actually at Appendix A on page 136 of that agenda. Just to elaborate a little bit more, obviously licensing officers have been involved in working with a number of partner organisations to help protect residents. There has been a lot of work going on with trading standards and the police, as Craig mentioned, on the vape shops, some of which are licensed and some of which are not. But we've also been doing some additional work with Norfolk County Council Schools Transport, and have been out to a couple of schools where our taxis are used for transporting school children to school, to check those vehicles over at the time just after they've dropped the children off. So we've been to 2 schools recently, one in Downham Market and one in Swaffham. It's something that the team is looking to undertake on a more regular basis, and BOSA are usually out checking the school buses at the same time, so if we had any concerns we would be able to get BOSA involved. But it's really just to make you aware that we are making those checks on those vehicles, because obviously they're some of our most vulnerable people using those kind of taxis. So other than that, I don't really have anything else to update on, because the majority of the update was actually already contained within item 9 of the previous committee, the licensing committee, at 10 o'clock this morning, if that's okay, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Josie. New members of the committee. We've got 1, 2, 3 here. Are there any training requirements that you wish to discuss this morning, or are you content to await them to come through from Craig and the team as and when they occur? You're happy to wait? You've got nothing you want to mention, Richard?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to wait, but just to say there was training put on in the summer and I found it very thorough and helpful, so thank you. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was good, thank you.
Taylor?
Yeah, something that I just thought might be worth putting forward for consideration, because I know previously we've had training sessions on particular areas that we cover, whether it's animal welfare or taxiing and licensing, but something that we done previously for the members of the licensing committee was actually for them to have the training, the personal licence holder training, and then have the option at the end to do the exam. And I think I was a member of the committee at the time, and there was a lot of good feedback for that opportunity, because it really put yourself in the shoes of the people that have the licensed premises. So that was just while you're considering what training might be offered, something to put forward for consideration.
Thank you, Taylor. Well, the team can discuss the possibilities of that at their next meeting. Kendra, did you have something you wanted to say?
Not for me personally. I know that, so for example, Councillor O'Callaghan, I don't think he's had the training. He wasn't able to do the one in the summer. So just to check, obviously, that there's repetitions of that training so that everybody is up to speed to be able to be involved with decisions and such like. And I think, as appreciate what Taylor said there, because you don't know what you don't know. So it's good to hear that there's things that have worked successfully before that we could be available to us. That would be really helpful. Thank you.
I think that was raised with me, Kendra, and I forwarded it to the team. for them to discuss the best ways forward to provide him with the training that he's missed out on because he's been working. Josie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So yes, we have taken that on board, and I think the anticipation is myself and Sarah will have a look at getting another one organised for next year. If I may just mention the Local Government Association training for licensing committee members as well. It's very good. It's online training, small bite-sized pieces. There's some really interesting things on there on the Local Government Association website. So please, if you are able to, take a look at those, because there is some really good information and, as I say, some bite-sized videos and things like that on there. That is really good interim training. So just a reminder that that is there as a resource for you. And I believe there's a handbook too for licensing committee members as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Josie, for that. Item number 8, feedback and discussion on recent panel meetings, if any. Well, I'm not aware that we've had any recent panel meetings, Josie. So I don't have anything to report on that at the moment. Item number 9, we have the update on the Community Impact Assessment Policy in Thetford. Craig, over to you.
Oh, good morning. Okay, yeah, so this is to update the licensing committee and decide upon the most appropriate course of action. So just to give some background, at its meeting on the 13th of November 2019, this committee considered a request by the chair of the Safer Thetford Action Group, known as STAG. And that was for a public consultation to be undertaken with regards to the potential implementation of a cumulative impact assessment policy. So that was a public consultation for that. I won't. 1.2 there is what was actually resolved. And basically a full copy of the report pack of that meeting from the 13th of November 19 and the minutes can be found at Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 of the report for further background information. So the current position is, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the reprioritisation of services, no public consultation actually took place. Legal advice has been sought, which concluded that this request is now based on old evidence and new evidence would be required to refresh this and consider whether it's a current issue or not. The legal advice also concluded that there had been some judicial reviews in respect of cumulative impact policies, cumulative impact assessments, and the adoption of one could expose the council to increased risk of legal challenge. It would need to be based on very sound evidence, fresh evidence, and it would need to be very carefully considered. So officers have engaged with STAG and Norfolk Police to update them and advise on the need for new evidence, but so far this has not been forthcoming at the level required. Officers have also attended STAG meetings and expressed their willingness to engage with them. And bearing in mind the legal advice received that the progression of this may not be the best course of action, and there may be other initiatives that might be more effective. So I think what we've said is that we will engage with them. These include, so again, there's other tools in the box, if you see what I mean by that. There's a renewal of the Public Spaces Protection Order. We're looking at the Safer Streets Initiative for street wardens and possible implementation of a Reduce the Strength campaign for off licences or a responsible retailing. We recently attended the STAG meeting, officers attended, and these proposals were well received. So the options are basically to undertake the public consultation. So again, you can revert back to the 2019 position. Or the options is actually to do nothing. Is that what we mean by that is we're not actually doing nothing because we're putting the other measures in place, but what we mean by that is not to undertake the public consultation. So the options are not to undertake the public consultation or to undertake further public consultation. So reasons for recommendations, well, as we've said, there's not the evidence that was submitted is old. There's not any up-to-date evidence to support a public consultation. And if undertaken without new evidence, this would be contrary to the legal advice received. A considerable period of time has passed since the previous decision. The report author's view is that a cumulative impact policy assessment may not be the best way of dealing with the current issues, and other measures are already being taken. Things have moved on and evolved since 2019, and this would use up a considerable officer resources. In the report author's opinion, the recommended option is the best course of action to take at the present time, and the benefits are that resources will not be unnecessarily committed, and resources can be prioritised and committed to new initiatives and working with the stag. So there'd be new focus on those initiatives instead of the actual cumulative impact policy. So in preparing the report, we've considered the implications of all those that's listed in 6.0, and we don't consider there to be any. I suppose there could be, if the recommendation was to undertake the public consultation, there could be a legal implication, because that would be contrary to legal advice, and that may expose us. The implication would be that may expose us to a risk of legal challenge on the basis that the evidence is old and therefore it needs to be refreshed. So hopefully that concludes the report. If there are any questions, I'm sure you'll ask. Do you want me to just actually read the recommendation, or do you wish to come
Yeah,
back
I just
there
wanted
later?
to add some personal experience, Craig, into to the report, which may help members. I lived in Thetford for 24 years, and in that time there was, on occasions in the town, I would see what could be termed as street drinkers. But I would just like to say that the street drinking is a bit of a confusion, because it could be somebody consuming a can of fizzy pop, or it could be an energy drink. It might not necessarily be alcohol. But following on from the Stag's involvement and their concerns, I would like to stress that when I had a meeting at Thetford Police Station with a district and town councillor and the inspector, not the chief inspector, and the director of communities, the police did not have any complaints or concerns about street drinking, and neither did the town council. So therefore, nothing had been referred to the licensing team. So it all came as a bit of a surprise. But I would like just to emphasise that the CIA will only give powers regarding new applications for premises to sell alcohol. It would not impact on the current premises that are licensed to sell alcohol. Am I correct, Craig?
Yes, it may be benefit, Chair, if you want us to just explain what a cumulative impact assessment is. Would that assist? I mean, basically, a cumulative impact, what it's saying is that there is a saturation of off licences or licensed premises in a particular area, mainly off licences, and basically that there are too many. So there is a saturation, and that more off licences would actually cause the issue. Could cause a greater issue. So, as you've said, you are correct, Chair. Obviously, that wouldn't reduce the number of cumulative impact. Sorry, that wouldn't reduce the number of off licences. And I'm not sure that it would actually, reduce the problem, because if people want to buy the alcohol and they want it, the shops are still there, they can still access it. So, I'm not sure that would actually resolve the issue.
And also, in the last 6 months, I have walked around the town and the open spaces around the town that I know very well. I was walking with another councillor, and it didn't appear to us that there was any identified problem or abuse that we found. And currently, the Public Space Protection Order has been renewed in Thetford. It covers a very large area, but it only gives the police the power to confiscate alcohol. It doesn't give the police any other powers other than that. And also, as I always say, councillors are our eyes and ears. I've spoken on 2 occasions to a very well-respected local town, district and county councillor in Thetford in the last couple of months since this review has been going on, and asked whether they had noticed that there were any significant drinking problems in the streets in the town. And they said no, that they hadn't noticed any at all. The problems in the town centre was young people using motorised scooters and bicycles. I know that our assistant director spoke to them as well and had the same answer. And so in that respect, I personally do not feel that a CIA will have the teeth to change anything that's currently going on. And in my experience, if we're not getting any complaints from the police, we're not getting any complaints from councillors, district councillors, we're not getting any complaints from the town council, then I'm reasonably content. Would anybody like to have any questions for Craig Taylor?
Yeah, it's not so much of a question, but an observation, which is that not only if we proceed with consultation without the up-to-date evidence, is that contrary to the legal advice, but I also feel like it would be a huge waste of taxpayers' money. And on that basis, I would actually like to propose that we accept the recommendation before us.
Thank you, Taylor. Before we go forward with that, Keith.
Just occurs to me that, to turn this on its head, a cumulative impact is because there's too many of one type of shop. So that actually dilutes the other types of shops which could be there. So it's something we can't do anything about it, it's a free market. But it does mean that if you've got 20 shops in a high street and 10 of them are off licences, you've only got 10 shops left that can do anything else. Whereas if there's only 5 off licences, you could have 15 doing different things. So it's a case of healthy high streets could be helped by CIA, maybe. Food for thought.
Yes, I take your comment on board, Keith. The thing is that active businesses that are already licensed, unless trading standards or the police have a complaint or a problem with that shop, we don't have the powers to take their licence away. And I've always said, watching Thetford change over the years as I did, that if people have the business acumen to start up a business in some of these small shops and make enough money to keep going, then they must be doing something right. The other thing is that through experience, and I'm sure it probably happens in a lot of towns, is that a lot of people work night shifts. When they come off night shifts, they may go to a shop if it's the summertime, they might buy something, they might have a drink or something to eat before they go home. And there are, I can't speak for the other market towns, but there are premises in Thetford which are houses of multiple occupancy. So they have to wait for somebody to go to work before they can actually go to bed. And I think all these things have to be taken into consideration. But I hear what you say, Keith. Any other questions for Craig? Linda?
No, sorry, it wasn't a question for Craig. I think he's put the case very well. It's in the report too, very clearly. And I do recall this coming up for discussion in 2019. And at the time it seemed as if it was probably a good idea. With this in front of us, it isn't a good idea anymore. It isn't necessary, it isn't advisable. I entirely endorse what Taylor's just said, and I think we should, I'll second that, and I think we should just go ahead with doing nothing.
Thank you, Linda. The officers have on many occasions asked for statistics for verification, which Stag have been unable to produce. And so this is why the recommendation is, and I hear Taylor's recommendation, and you're seconding it. So would you like to say it again, Taylor?
Yeah, I would like to have, sorry. Yes, thank you. I would propose that we accept the recommendation, that the committee has received the update, and that the committee reconsider the previous decision and resolve to take no further action at the present time. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Linda. Well, that's resolved then, Sarah. The recommendation is to do nothing, that we take... We did take no further action. Committee, could we have a vote for the recommendation, please? That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Craig. Well, that's the end of the meeting, Julie, yes? Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and thank you all for your input and your comments. I think it's been a very good meeting. Thank you very much indeed. And we'll say goodbye, and to anybody who's been watching online, thank you very much for attending. And we'll close it down, Julie.